got a list of animals to explore here, and I put a link in the Patreon post with a bunch of photo references that I gathered from Unsplash. And Unsplash, you can get royalty-free images. So there's a bunch of good stuff in there, and I kind of numbered them as a way to prioritize certain images, because I want to try to probably first focus on simple basic shapes of animals and then start looking maybe at different poses, different angles, and things like that. But generally, it's going to be exploring simplified ways of drawing animals here. So that's my favorite approach when it comes to animals. When it comes to a lot of things, is just seeing how far I can reduce the basic shape and get some and still sort of bring life and personality out of a drawing. So let me flip this camera and we'll go ahead and get started. First, I'm going to be using Tombow markers. I have a yellow, a green, a blue, and like an orange. A fountain pen. You can use any black ink pen if you're drawing along. And I'll probably use this Uniball Signo white gel pen as well. If you don't have a white pen and you're following along, I think you can just use your black ink for whatever I would be doing with this as well. So it's just like smaller details and things. And I'm drawing on Borden and Riley Paris paper for pens. And yeah, so let me flip this camera. And welcome, thanks for being here. Thanks for supporting on Patreon. And let's get to it. Let's see. Now I just need to turn on my YouTube on this other phone here. So let's see. I can't seem to do that on my other phone because, is it because I have it private? Okay. Intermission, 1 moment, please, while I figure this out. If someone can comment in the YouTube comments, or if you're on Patreon, if you can comment on Patreon, I might have to just reload Patreon from time to time to get any questions or comments, just because it's not easy to have this set up where I'm seeing a live feed of questions. Um, So let's go ahead and get started, and then I'll worry about that later. I'll just check in from time to time to see if there's comments or suggestions for things to draw. So I'm going to start here with some cats because I think, I think cats, sort of like the ones that I've been drawing lately, they can sort of help talk through some of the principles of my approach here. Like, so I kind of think, a big part of drawing an appealing character is reducing it down to its simplest form and like the fewest number of strokes as possible. So when I was thinking about the cat, I used to kind of do cats like, like this, and this was sort of my simple, sort of cliche, I don't know if cliche, but sort of an iconic way of drawing a cat, which is just this big hump of a cat sort of laying down here. And this just felt a little like inelegant in a way, like, there's just something I'm having to think a little bit too much. I'm doing too many strokes. It becomes a sort of different thing. It's not necessarily evoking cat that much, especially, once you put in the legs and stuff, it kind of comes together. But I wanted to find a little bit more of an elegant, simple approach to the cat, and that's where I was kind of thinking, it's because someone kind of pointed out that this spells cat too, which is interesting, but the C-A-T. Now, I was thinking, well, what's a better, easier, simpler, reduced way of doing the cat? And that's where I kind of came up with this one, which was just twisting the brush of the marker like so that I'm starting with a wide stroke to a thin stroke and then back to a wide stroke. So it's really one move. And once you do this, you can kind of start to look at this and see which way the cat is looking, or more specifics about the cat's pose there, right? Like here I start to see that this is the back of the cat and that its head maybe, could be looking any direction, but just by looking at it, you can start to imagine, other specific things about it. The back of the cat, maybe it's looking in this direction. So then each time I kind of come in and add to it, I'm sort of basing that off of what I'm reading into the more abstract shape that I'm working on, right? Now, the legs kind of come down to a point here. So that's kind of where I landed with my new sort of way of drawing my streamlined way of drawing a cat. And then you can go in and bring it to life with the line work. I kind of did a similar thing in terms of trying to find that reduced, simple form. I did a similar thing with the busy birds sort of character that I do sometimes, which is, just it's sort of one move in terms of not picking up the marker, and it's just the 3 thin strokes, and I'm just using, I'm sort of thinking about the tool in this, like what the marker is capable of. It can do these thin and it can do thick, so it's a simple sort of move like that. The thing with this bird, it's not really like a drawing of a bird. It's more of it's more like character design. It's sort of like a Hanna-Barbera character, humanoid character that happens to be a bird. And that's all one move too, right there, that first line. So it's not quite a drawing of a bird. And so when we get into the birds part, I'll be doing sort of maybe less character design, and still sort of cartoony and stylized, but not quite this sort of, Hanna-Barbera looking type cartoon. So pulling up references and starting with the cats. Let's turn this light off for a second. This was the first cat in my photo references, and you can kind of see already what I started talking about, where these legs kind of come down to a point. The shape of it is really like large, skinny, and then kind of comes back out up here at the head. And when you exaggerate that, it's sort of that marker shape where starting thick, thin, and then thick, adding the ears, and there you go. So I'll do a few cats based on some of these, and we'll get this rolling. And what I'll probably do is try to do a full page of all the critters we draw today, and then maybe I'll just raffle off the final piece here for anyone who's joining in today. But I'll use a separate sheet to explore. Now with the cats, I've kind of started exploring that already, and we'll do a couple of more of those. Oops. And I'm just trying not to think too much about it, I want to get this shape down somewhat spontaneously with some kind of energy, and that way, since I'm not thinking too much, I wind up having a shape that I can read into a little bit more, if that makes sense. Like I was saying, like the shape, if I'm doing it a little bit more off the cuff, will be a little bit more abstract. And that means I don't know what I'm quite looking at until I put that shape down and then look at it. So this one, without quite meaning to, seems like this is the back of the cat here, and it's looking off to this direction. Now, we just finish these guys. I like to try to get a little variety in terms of the specifics and big ears, small ears, weird ears. It's all good. Now this is where it starts looking sort of rodent-like when I do this. A cat's tail doesn't quite taper like a rat tail does. So I just have to kind of round that out there. And it's obviously a bit long. Oh, and then those legs, again, just using the side of the marker here. Just 2 lines coming down to a point. And that goes a long way in describing the pose of this cat. Sometimes I can kind of have the paw come out too, but that's more when the cat is leaning forward. This one's leaning back, so I think it's similar sort of pose here. And then the face, it can be kind of tricky because, well, let's take a look. I mean, I'll probably just do some simple smiling sort of eyes, closed eyes. Little triangle nose. And then the mouth, when I was sort of exploring this style of drawing a cat, I struggled with this part, drawing the mouth, because when I draw, you know, the sort of snout curling up here, it always ends up looking like it's smiling, and I'm not really trying to make a smiling cat. I mean, other than the eyes are smiley, but I don't always like doing character or animal drawings that are smiling, because it's like a little too cute or something. It's expressing emotions in a human way, which is a little bit like not quite the vibe. I mean, a cat is cute, and a cat doesn't really quite smile like that. So it's more like just dropping it down, another V shape, upside down V. And yeah, I mean, again, like, because otherwise, here's what I'm sort of saying. If I really sort of describe these, that becomes a smile, and that's sort of what I'm trying to avoid. It's a little like, to me, it's sort of a little too goofy, unless I'm going for that, you know? So it's fine once in a while, but it's not sort of the baseline of the design here. Whiskers are fun because you can just sort of like just kind of let these be wonky, scraggly. And that wonky line, I think, is a nice balance for this a little bit more streamlined form, if that makes sense. Just looking at my photo references. Now, want to deviate a little bit from this design of the cat and just look a little bit more at the references that I have. And I'm looking now at the cat on the stairs. It's a little bit more of a profile like this. And you can see it's sort of got its chest out like this. I'm just kind of looking for all the different shapes here. Kind of got a diamond shape head. Underneath its head is sort of diamond as well. And this part right here is just its chest coming out. Its paws are actually, or its legs are actually down here. The other leg kind of comes down right there. And then we get this. It's a little too exaggerated. I'm just, again, just really thinking about the tool a lot, because again, that's a nice contrast, is when you have a tool, when you have this duality of something mechanical with something organic. So mechanical meaning, you know, the tool itself, the non-human sort of element of it, that there is this feeling of, you know, my specific head work, my mind isn't in it as much as it is with the line work. That's where like my hand comes into it. Whereas a lot of these shapes are, you know, so much of them is determined by the tool itself. Very wonky. And then this is where you can be sort of expressive and loose and sort of energetic, spontaneous, all of that stuff. This leg we don't quite see, but I'm going to just kind of fake it. And then we have so one of these, the later photos in the cats photo references, we get to the big boys, fat cats, the chonkers in internet speak, and I mean the main thing with these big cats, I think, pretty much everything is the same, except obviously we can't really do this in one stroke because these are skinny cats. For the big one, it's really just more create. You can do this with like a thick nibbed or thick brush marker, but I'm not using those right now. And then, so it's kind of the same shape, just all kind of one big mass like this. And then other than that, the other difference is like these big cats can't quite keep their paws together the way a more fit cat can. They kind of come out this way to hold itself up. So I'm just going to do that one again real quick here. These ears are just a push up diagonally and then a pull. Just a push and a pull using the side of the marker there. Kind of trying to draw some folds in here, but now it just looks like it's wearing a shirt or something. All right, so I'm 30 minutes in here and we've only done cats, so I'm gonna try to cruise forward on some of these other animals here. So I'm moving on to the birds, and again, I have these busy birds, but that's like sort of more of a character, and I want to just do more of a drawing of a bird. And so I'm looking at the first one in these references. I like to choose images. If I'm using a photo reference, I'm looking for something that has that's dynamic in the sense that it's I guess some of these later ones you can see it's just a bird sort of staring straight ahead, which is cool, but like when you have a bird whose body's facing one way but is looking off the other direction, then you have those dynamics, more energy in the pose. And so I'm going to start with that one. These, by the way, these robins, I think, these are borbs. That's a bird. Borb. If you like borbs, there's a whole subreddit dedicated to them. Um, okay, so I think this is a goldfinch, the yellow one I'm starting with here, but I kind of, with a bird, I tend to sort of start with a sort of teardrop shape, or I'm just looking for a shape that tapers off at the top and has a bigger mass for the body. Now with this goldfinch, it's a little different because its head is pointing that way. So I'm looking at the contour of this shape, and it's still sort of the same basic shape, but rather than have the head up here, I've got it curved up like that. And I'm just gonna look at this for a second. And again, it's, I'm gonna think between strokes. I'm gonna think between sort of phases of this drawing and look at it and let the shape speak to me a little bit about what, I'm looking at a reference now, so it's, but it will still sort of reveal more things than you're intending at first. Now we see the head kind of comes down like this. We can exaggerate some of this feathers, fluff. I don't know if this is running out of ink or what, but then do the legs. So for the legs, for birds, I usually like to sort of go back and then down like that, so that the legs are coming out straight ahead from the back of it. And this is what do you call this? Basically it's like their legs are bent backwards. They're not, it just kind of looks that way, but it's a similar thing to cats, other animals where it seems like their legs the joint is bent in the opposite way of a human leg. It's really, the reality is this joint up here is more like an ankle joint. This whole thing is sort of like its foot. When you have a leg like this of a cat, let's say, or a bird, it's actually walking on its toes right here. This you would kind of think of as the rest of the foot, and then there's actually more of a knee up there. Anyway, so yeah, that always helps to remember, is that I just sort of bring the leg back and then forward like that. Bring a little branch in here. Now then, the third image, maybe that's, I guess, another goldfinch, but it's sort of leaning out like this, and I'll sort of exaggerate this pose here. But I'm just trying to get a quick mass for the form. He's got his legs kind of tucked up underneath. It's kind of fun. Simple. Oh, I wanted to, oh, so yeah, maybe we'll do one of these borbs. The borbs are fun. Let's grab an orange and actually I'm going to flip, so I'm using this one, the sort of close-up, and I'm going to flip it the other way. Have them facing to the right. Head, just a little suggestion of the head. The rest, is just this big mass. And then let's see. A little beak. legs coming down, forward. The bird kind of has, I don't know what you'd call it, but the back thumb or something kind of comes in off the back like that. Claw. I think what happened was I was working this week on paper, on very textured watercolor paper, and I was mistreating this nib by using this pen on that particular paper. And I think this nib is not happy about it. So I have to possibly get a new nib for this pen, but it's okay for now. Throw in a little bit of white. And these details, similar to the cat, they just sort of help to describe the form in that, you know, I'm curving the little lines here, so they're sort of helping to describe the roundness, and then having them right here kind of indicates, of course, that the front of the bird is here. It's a little bit more of 3/4 rather than only on this edge. Same thing with having the beak set into the head a little bit. Actually, it looks like he's wearing one. This one looks like he's got a harness on, maybe. He's about to go for a walk. Burn some calories. All right. Okay, so otters. I've got some photos here. I was glad to see someone suggest otters because it's a challenge. I've never really drawn an otter other than Emmett Otter, and he doesn't count because he's a Muppet. But I think it's also a challenge because as a simplified drawing, I think it's hard to make simple forms that are going to be recognizably an otter, and not like a weasel or a beaver or a gopher or something. So that's going to be the trick, and that's good because we need to sort of think about what makes an otter, right? Now with these photos, the sort of pose and scenario will go a long way because we think of otters and we picture them like this, sort of floating on their backs, and so that's sort of iconic, and that can be one way to create a drawing of an otter that's instantly recognizable as an otter, is to whereas I think when you start to sort of try to draw them like this, that could almost be like a ferret. I mean, when you're just reducing it down to a few strokes, it could become very easily something that's not necessarily an otter. I think these are all otters here. But anyway, I think we'll start with just an otter in water, right? and then that will be kind of not mistakable. I just want to practice a little bit here. I'll probably do something like where you're just seeing the parts of the otter that are actually coming out of the water. So like the head, there is a little bit of a point to an otter's head, some more than others. So this is the head coming out of the water. It's got a little point on it, a little bit. The paws, the hands kind of come out. And I'm not quite basing this exactly on one of these particular drawings. I'm just sort of using them as a guide. And then the feet would sort of come out. It's got big, I don't know if they're webbed, I think they're webbed, but big floppy feet sticking out. And then I think the issue here that we run into is, you know, it looks like this head, well, it has no form. It's not really describing an otter's head, because we need to give it a face, which has sort of this heart shape, upside down heart shape to it. This being where the nose is going to be, and then this part being the mouth. The nose is sort of a diamond-esque shape. So there already, that's starting to look like an otter. I mean, it looks like Emmett Otter. I think they did a great job with the Emmett Otter design because it's a similar thing where they're describing an otter in very simple forms. But anyway, so that's a pretty good shape to describe an otter. Right there, the face. The eyes are tiny little beady eyes. That's odd. That's pretty otter-esque, but their ears are very tiny. All right, let's bring our newfound knowledge of otter ability to the main page here. Otterosity. Let's try this out. The head. Kind of connect the head and the paws here. Very vague, simple strokes. Trying not to think too much so that I can look at this and read into it more information. So just looking at it, I almost feel like it's looking a little bit more off this way. So we can try that. Our otter face shape was the heart, like this, to this curvy diamond nose. Little ears. And then I'll just indicate the water here. I don't know exactly what the feet look like, but that I think should work just fine. Squiggle, just a few squiggles. It's pretty fun. Just want to try one that's not in the water and see if we can get a recognizable otter from the whole body. Okay, so I'm going to use this one of the otter standing up straight in the grass. So if you've downloaded the reference photos, I don't know what number that is, but it's standing up like a meerkat sort of. Start with the yellow this time and go up. So I'm just looking for the contour of the otter there. And then, oh well, we can do a little bit of the paw, the arm here. I'm gonna still use our shorthand for the otter face, even though this otter in this photo doesn't quite look, the perspective, you're not seeing so much of that diamond nose, but that's pretty good. Cool, I dig it. So next, I can go a little beyond 3, but if you're just here for the hour, thank you for joining. I'm going to keep going and try to cover a couple more of these animals. But if you got to run, leave a comment if you want to be in this drawing where the raffle, where I'll give away some of these sketches. And moving on to the rabbit here. I haven't drawn a lot of rabbits, but let's find a good way to do a rabbit. I'm gonna use some scratch paper to explore this a little bit. And a rabbit is, in a way, it's simple. I mean, the big thing about the rabbit is the ears, obviously. That's the sort of iconic thing. You can almost draw any shape and just add these big bunny ears, and then you've got the rabbit. But let's investigate that a little further. From the first rabbit photo reference, it's looking directly at camera, but we also see the body. So the overall shape, I mean, the rabbit's head is kind of very pointy, I don't know about pointy, but sort of the whole shape comes to this point. And then like a cat, it's got this protruding chest area, and then the paws, the legs kind of come down like this. Now this looks like a neck until we describe that form a little better. It's actually the little head. So let's do these ears real quick. Big giant ears, tiny little head, big teardrop sort of body. Let's move on. Let's actually do another one here on the main page. Do a yellow rabbit. I'm thinking of how to incorporate this into the composition too of the page here. So I'm just going to use this curve of the tail to guide this shape a little bit. The head, tiny little head. I'm not seeing the tail really in any of these reference photos, so I'm okay with just doing the classic puff, you know, cotton ball puff tail. We got the legs kind of come down here. I'll do one more. Maybe this second photo, this gray one. And again, I'm going to flip it because I want this rabbit facing the other direction. And his head's a little bigger, body's a little chunkier, but it's more sort of stout. So I'm sort of drawing the front first as one shape, which is this sort of almost diamond sort of blob, and then behind it, the legs, like so. Front legs. All right. So I'm going to switch to a finer pen since we've made these sort of faces so tiny. So I'm just using a Faber-Castell fine liner, Faber-Castell. So we'll start with this one, the nose, just a little triangle. The eyes are really like on the side of the head. I mean, I guess an easy way to sort of simplify that rabbit face is almost an X, where it's the nose and then the mouth. Or something like that. All right, feel good about those rabbits. What else we got here? Oh, it was gonna be hippos, but hippos, I decided, you know, there's something about the shape of hippos that's, it is challenging in not necessarily a fun way, because the sort of cliche hippo face with this big snout, the trick here is, like, we think of hippos as having these giant snouts or muzzles, this giant mouth, but their body is gigantic too. So it's like, how do we exaggerate? What do we make large? We can't really make both things large. So it's like, of course, this is with no reference or anything, but I thought something a little more fun would be a rhino, because I know that I did a sort of exploration page of rhinos somewhat recently, and what I thought was interesting about drawing rhinos is they're sort of all head, and you can kind of get away with drawing their body smaller, even though similar to a hippo, their bodies are huge, their heads are huge. So what I like to do is sort of focus on that big head, which is sort of a point, and then you can kind of make the body smaller. They have a hump or two usually, but it's this sort of like head and neck that come out that really defines the sort of vibe of the rhino. And this is exaggerated just for that purpose. I mean, you could try doing one with a larger body, but I think this is kind of fun. And they've got little ears. I think it's a little tail. And then it gets fun when you start to describe the form a little bit more with the lines, because there's so many of these like um, folds and wrinkles. So I'm going to move on to the main page here and do a quick rhino. And let's do yellow. This whole page will just be orange and yellow, I guess. And just need to find a spot for it, maybe over here. Now I need to sort of draw the body very small since I have limited space. Actually, maybe we'll go up here. No, I'll stay over here. So I got the horn. Just gonna try to simplify this. Sort of a big triangle of a head leading to a couple of humps. Okay, I really ran out of space here, but we're gonna see how this goes. And even before the legs, I mean, this is like so much neck. Just this huge head and then all of this neck before you even get to the legs there. So the leg's gonna come down from over here in this very exaggerated version. All right, I gotta switch pens again because that's given me problems. But again, I think the real fun part is all these folds that kind of help describe the forms, what's in front of what, the leg, the muscles in the anatomy, the leg sort of starts way up here. And this is all just defined by these folds and wrinkles. Same thing with this back leg, kind of starts way up here. And it's important, I mean, I think such a big part of drawing in general is just trying to explain what's in front of what, and it's these lines that sort of describe that. So it's just an interesting thing to always be thinking about. It's like you're really just trying to explain that one thing is in front of another thing. And you can kind of just take the pen for a little ride and enjoy it. The eye is way up here. this little mouth. I don't know, it's pretty cool. Kind of dig this. All right, so there's our rhino. And I'm gonna move on from the rhino because I just want to do one or two more. Elephant was suggested as well. Elephant. Let me grab the scratch paper. And if you think about the elephant, again, you have to sort of decide: am I making the body enormous or the head enormous? You can kind of go both ways with it, but I think probably more iconically, we'd want to show a big body, you know, the big mass. And then the head can kind of be smaller and still be recognizable. So, in other words, I mean, you could have basically a big blob with no head because the trunk and the ears go such a long way in translating or, you know, communicating that this is an elephant. So that's just to go to say that, like, as far as sort of caricaturizing or simplifying it, the head can become smaller. Now, I think if it's a baby elephant, you might want to do the big head, small body, like Dumbo style. But let's see. Let's just wing it. And I'll go up here, and maybe I'll start with the trunk. Got a little mouth coming off the bottom of the trunk. And then from here, I'll just go ahead and try to describe the shape, the contour. Little head. Big body. Okay, this I think will start to look better when we get the lines in here. Again, it's similar to the rhino. I think a lot of what's sort of describing this form will be done through the line work. Right now, it doesn't look so great. And maybe it won't in the end, and that's fine too. We're gonna see. Have another leg coming out right there. This leg stepping forward. I still can't tell if this is an elephant gone wrong. Well, I think part of that is this, the way the leg is, had this big back end. All right, let's see what we can do. Maybe we needed a bigger head, I don't know. But again, I think showing what's in front of what. So this leg is in front of everything pretty much. So that's kind of where I want to start. And we don't have to follow the contour of the marker exactly. So we can deviate from that. I mean, that's kind of what I love about working with markers, you know, that I'm sort of using the marker shape as a sketch. And we see here, I sort of made this, either the legs are very short or the body comes down too far. So what I would do here in the line work is just ignore what I did with the marker, sort of. Let's have the bottom of the body be right here. Yeah, it's pretty wonky. Trying to think if what else I can do to sort of improve this, because it's not right. It's just not right. But one thing is maybe just darken these back legs a little bit. Give a little bit of shadow shading. We're sort of doubling down now on the updated form after putting the line work in. Just trying to reinforce those forms a little bit more. But I think it's really the small head that is the problem here, ultimately. Well, that's it. That's the elephant, I think. He's all right. All right. Well, maybe let's do one more. I want to try this. I want to try the big head, I think. The big head elephant. Really just kind of a small trunk. I'm not going to go out on that elephant. I got it. Well, I don't want to speak too soon because I might do another real wonker. Okay. Well, I like this so far, but small body here. Now I'm just bouncing back. As far as like what I'm picturing this is going to look like, I'm kind of bouncing back from the reference to this because this is informing it just as much as the reference photo is. It needs longer legs. All right, let's see what happens here with this. This one's really all about the ear, this gigantic ear. One thing I always tell people is beginners or people learning to draw is try to do blind contour as much as possible while you're learning. It doesn't need to be fully blind, but as often as possible be looking at the reference rather than the drawing. See how long you can sort of keep the pen moving without lifting it up too. And that exercise goes a long way. So I think this is coming out pretty good. These tusks come right up here to the eye. Big old eyelid there. Maybe the other ear is sort of peeking out over there. Okay, I kind of like it. It's still wonky, but it's fun. It's unique. And then just add a little bit more of the shading in here. And okay, I'll do one more since what I have for the references, and have to apologize to whoever suggested penguins. I don't think we're going to get to penguins today. I want to do one more thing, and then that's going to do it for this. But moving on to the giraffe. Giraffe? Yeah. We'll do a giraffe right here. And I've got a few photos here. A giraffe is interesting because it can either be sort of standing straight up and take a lot of vertical space, or like in the second image in the references, really taking up, it's got its neck sort of leaning forward, so it's taking up more sort of horizontal space. I think I'll just do that here, where it's sort of walking, leaning forward, and one big swoop to this hump. This is like the first sort of hump, and then another swoop to the back hump, the leg, let that swoop back up there. Now, I don't know, these proportions might still be weird here, but let's just see what happens. Luckily, it won't be mistakable for anything else really with the neck. So we've got that going for us. Unless it looks like a dinosaur, which is possible. Can't really see the bottom of these legs, so I'm gonna do a lot of grass here to sort of hide the bottom of it. And then we'll do a little triangular sort of face. Put these, whatever these are called. All right, so with this, I like to bring in the orange here and do the spots first, and then go in with the line work. And so I'll try to just do this quickly, but these would just be sort of fairly abstract shapes. This is similar to sort of how I do stone siding or stone walls in architecture sort of things, just sort of creating a lockup of abstract shapes here. Varying between big and small, although the shapes sort of are largest in the mass of the body, I think, and in the bottom of the neck. And then they kind of get smaller as it goes into the legs and as it goes to the top of the head. That's a fun exercise in and of itself, is just sort of doing these shapes that all kind of lock up together. We'll just let these sort of trickle off like that. I mean, that's a giraffe. There's no question. I'll do this grass thing so that's not distracting, that its legs aren't fully visible there. And then just like with the elephant, with the rhino, we want to just show this back leg is coming from way up here. I don't know if, yeah, again, I don't know what that leg does really, so I just want to like keep it vague. The front leg, again, also comes from way up here. And then giraffes, another, just like the rhino and the elephant, got these big eyelids. Let's see, the mouth? I think the mouth needs to just kind of come. We need this little stroke right here. Yeah. I don't really know if I want to try to draw that mouth more. I kind of like how that looks as it is, but we'll throw in a little nostril. Elaborate a bit on this ear. And then just give it some hair here. I think that should do it on the giraffe. Maybe have the head kind of come in there. All right, I think I have to draw the mouth now. Sort of big birdie, but all good. Okay, I'm probably just gonna want to fill this in, but I'm gonna leave that for now, and we'll call it a day on the animals drawings. Thank you all for being here. Thanks for your support here on Patreon, and I'm sorry if there were any questions that I didn't see, but I'm checking it and I'm not seeing any. But if there are, then I'll get to them separately. And hope you have a great rest of your weekend, and thanks a lot. All right, bye.